This is What's Wild in New Hampshire by wildlife biologist Eric Walk. I am at New Hampshire Audubon today. Look at the birds here. And we have Dr. Pam Hunt. I am recording women in New Hampshire, the history of women in New Hampshire, like Pam, that have contributed so much to conservation here in New Hampshire. She's been at New Hampshire Audubon quite a while. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about some of the things she's worked on. How has Pam Hunt made history at New Hampshire Audubon? Pam, how long have you been at Audubon?
I have been at Audubon almost 22 years.
Okay, 22 years.
August 2000.
Okay. What are some of the projects? I think really there was nothing being done that I can recall, like on Dragonflies and that whole thing until you somehow moved it, right?
Yeah, I've always been a bird person, but the dragonfly thing, I got interested in dragonflies roughly the time I started working here. And that led ultimately to this first ever New Hampshire Dragonfly Survey, which was a statewide atlas from 2007 to 2011 to document the distribution of every single species, 260 something of them in the state.
And that was under your tutelage.
That was under my tutelage with mostly
volunteers. And probably did most of it.
No, I had volunteers contribute.
Oh, you did?
Hundreds, if not thousands of hours of time into that project.
Oh, wow. Yeah, volunteers are so important to New Hampshire Audubon. They just are. And New Hampshire Fish and Game, we don't exist without our volunteers, so. And they've discovered how many species?
Well, I get actually a number I gave was wrong. I said 260. I meant 160.
Okay.
So there's roughly 165 species of dragonflies that are known in the state, and we found some new ones during that project and document the ranges of the rest of them.
And like damselflies too?
Damselflies, yeah, that includes both of them.
Okay, all right. Are there some other cool things like that you've worked on? How about some of the Beetles? Or it's kind of all on the...
I don't do much with beetles.
Okay.
I get this reputation of being an insect person, but really I'm a bird person, like I said. The other really big bird things. Just last spring, we published our second revision of our State of the Birds report, which is a summary of all the threats and trends and conservation actions for all the birds of the state. That's come out twice now. We're working on new versions of that stuff as we're thinking about stuff. That's a big publication that people can look up on our website for. That came out of the Wildlife Action Plan. I've helped Fish and Game with the Wildlife Action Plan.
Oh, that's right. You worked on that heavily, didn't you, for a long time?
Coming up again in a year and a half or so. We'll be knee deep in that again.
Updating it.
Yeah. And I've done most of the work in the state on loss of grassland birds. I've led whippoorwill research in the state, starting in early 2000s and going straight through the mid 2015. So that's led to a national monitoring protocol for whippoorwills that people are using in Canada and most of the U.S. now.
Wow.
So that was a big thing.
It's something you kicked off.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. How about tell me about the birds that you worked with. Have you worked with like the peregrine? You work on everything here, really, don't you?
No, because I don't, the one things I don't work on are the birds of prey, because we've got a different biologist here, Chris Martin, and he is in charge of all the raptor stuff. I don't touch the raptor stuff. I don't touch the tern stuff. There's people working on that other places. I'm basically covering most of what's left over. Colleagues work on nighthawks and rusty blackbirds, but I do grassland birds. I do forest birds. I do Bicknell's thrush, tiny little bits of that. I do swifts and swallows and purple martins, flycatchers, anything that's not hunted or endangered, and a few endangered things as well that I work on, basically most non-game birds.
Okay. Now, it was really the Audubon that kind of kicked off the threatened and endangered list, in my memory, some years ago, and I'm sure you've worked on that updating that probably.
Yeah, updating the list, and you should talk to Carol Foss, who was actually around when we created the non-game program.
Yep.
Right? So Audubon was instrumental in doing that, and you should definitely ask her about that.
I will.
Later in your series here.
So when you say you work on these birds, what does that entitle? And if someone wanted to be a New Hampshire Audubon bird biologist, what do they have to do?
Depends what species you're going to play with. For grassland birds, I mostly end up walking around airports doing surveys and mapping out where the birds are on the airport, so we can just know how many there are. For the whippoorwill stuff, I was out putting radio transmitters of birds in the dark and following them around at night because they're active at night and looking for what their territories were. For cliff swallows, which is what I started up last year, I'm going up visiting this colony of swallows and looking at the nests and seeing whether they've got young in them yet and what they're doing with each nest to get an idea of how successful they are. Down the seacoast, I work with volunteers to put up housing for purple martins, which is another threatened species that we're trying to recover. And so that mostly involves guiding them. They do all the work, and I just
make sure it happens.
Give them
the right way.
Moral support.
Yeah.
90% of the time, it's just moral support for those guys that are basically growing that population from nothing in the last 5 to 10 years.
Really? So what have the pine marten gone from then? Say you said almost nothing to how many now?
Purple marten, not pine marten.
I'm sorry, purple marten. Yeah, pine marten.
Yeah, mammal bias.
I'm an old fur bear biologist, that's all.
There were, back probably 2000, 14, 15, there was maybe one pair on the seacoast.
Really?
Now there are probably on the order of 60 to 70.
Very successful work under your guidance, really.
And we're putting in some more stuff in the next month.
Yeah, look at the history you've changed there. You've changed history for the better. Another historical.
I didn't change history, we just kept it moving.
We kept it moving, huh? Well, for the better.
You need a time machine to change history.
That's true. Well, today is history, and tomorrow will be history too. That's the way I look at it.
What will tomorrow bring?
Yep.
Don't know.
It'll bring history. That's what it'll bring. All right, Pam, awesome work. I do appreciate taking the time here to talk to me. This is wonderful. I've known you for a long time. As I say, you're just a fountain of knowledge. Every time I want to know something, Pam will know this. Oh, thank you for taking the time this afternoon. A historical figure right here. Thank you, Pam Hunt. This is Wildlife Biologist Agor for What's Wild in New Hampshire.